Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of the Merrimack School Board SAU 26 to order for January 8th, 2024. I would ask you all to please join me as we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right. Well, welcome, everybody. Hope everyone's been able to dig themselves out after a first snow of the season. We're going to open tonight's meeting with public participation. We ask that if you are planning on speaking tonight to please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. And if you're a student, there is no need to state your address, just your name. So we now open the mic for public participation. Seeing none. We will close public participation for tonight and move on to our first order of new business, which is a presentation we heard a little bit about last week, and we actually heard a little bit more at the Budget Committee meeting last week, but hoping to get some more tonight about the Merrimack High School scoreboard fundraising proposal. We're going to invite Mr. Sean Powers up to give us a brief presentation. There we go.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, Sean was heavily involved in the concession stand that went so spectacularly a couple years ago. That was a great project, Sean. Thank you very much.
And just make sure your microphone is on there. Just a little button down there at the bottom. Boop. Thank you.
It's a tech thing. So I'm Sean Powers. I'm a Merrimack resident, about 27 years now, and live here with my wife and 2 children. And I always try to involve myself in a project. Concession stand was one. The scoreboard's the next one. After this is done, I'll find another one. Just want to be involved in the community and see what we can do to help. So again, I don't have really a presentation, but there is a need for a scoreboard for sure. And I got to put on my glasses so I can read. So I figured I'd start by talking about location, and this can be very interactive. Anybody has any questions, feel free to interrupt me, for sure. So the current scoreboard, if you're sitting in the stands, is on the left-hand side of the field, and it's on a 2 I-beams that can only support a board of that size. It can't be any bigger. It could certainly be smaller, but it couldn't be any bigger, and it's not the optimal place for it because it gets washed out by the sun. So any day activities, just you really can't see it. So I started working on this during the pandemic, and then the concession stand took priority, and done a lot of research looking at what could be done to replace the scoreboard. So thinking about location for a new scoreboard, because the way the telecommunications and the conduit goes from the booth, it goes to the left of the field, down around, and underneath and up to the current scoreboard. So if we were to think about putting a scoreboard right in the middle of the field, that would really extend the amount of construction and conduit that would have to happen. So the thought is, and again, everything's up for conversation, everything's up for debate. The thought is that if you're sitting in the stands, you see 3 light poles, 1, 2, 3, one in the center. So in between the 2 on the left would be, I think, a really great place for a much larger scoreboard, and I'll talk about some options for that, because there's less track and field things that would have to be rebuilt in that area or moved, or we even may possibly be able to avoid touching any of the track and field. And getting over there, we can still get through the gate with a crane. We can get through the gate. We could come all the way around in between the outbuilding and the light post without ever even needing to touch the track. No equipment on the track kind of thing. So that spot would make it as close to the existing conduit, if it's usable. We think it's usable, but we'd have to find out for sure, and a survey would tell us that. But that would help keep costs down to have that scoreboard there, and that would be a good spot for it. So, but anybody wants to think about centering it, kind of hard because there's a pole right in the center, so it's really either this side or that side. So we were thinking that side. And again, make sure that we don't bring any equipment out on the track.
Sean, which side was that side? I forgot you said this side and that side. So what side is that side?
So
Is this side the side closest to the existing field house? It's in the right hand corner.
So yeah, so if you're sitting in the stands looking out at the field,
Yeah.
you look down and the current scoreboard's on your left.
Yes.
And then sitting in the stands, you see the 3 light poles, one on the
Yes.
right, center, and left. We're talking about putting the board centered between the 2 left poles.
The 2 left poles.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So, you'd be sitting in the stand, boom, it's right there, rather than right there, because you can't put it in the middle, because the pole's there, and you're not going to move the pole. And there's also no services in that outbuilding, that maintenance building in the back right part of the field. So
Correct.
we can't, we couldn't bring conduit over, because there's no services in there. It's just a maintenance building.
Yeah. Tom and I were talking about that today. So
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I've had a lot of conversations with Tom about this too. So thinking about dimensions and details. So what the hope here is that we can get a state of the art board up there, a video board, a video and sign combination board, which I've been working with 4 vendors so far, getting educated, understanding what's available out there, what's the right size, getting the largest board we can get out there that makes sense, because it's just like putting a big TV in your living room. Bigger isn't necessarily always better, and we obviously want to try to keep costs down as much as possible. But video sign combination, trusses, trellises, for maintenance in the future, 4-column steam I-beam structure. So we're talking about a video board that's a 13-foot by 25-foot. Right now, the current board that's out there is an 18-foot. So if you look over at that board, it's an 18-foot. So that video board itself would be much bigger than the board that's there. And the hope is that the articulation of that, as you're viewing it, it's going to, it's not going to be washed out by the sun. Plus, it wasn't, that board was put in the 80s. So, it's way older technology. So the newer boards take sunlight much better and will present much better. And this whole, all the packages that are available, and we're talking about putting a 4-foot by 8-foot, 4-foot by 8-foot customized sign with the name up on top of it, and I'm sorry, a 4x8 digital sign for the scores themselves, with the video board underneath it, and then above the sign a 4x25 truss sign that we could name the name Tomahawks, whatever the name that's agreed on up there. And the way this works is these packages, they include computers, they include the scoreboard software, custom graphics, advertising shows. It's a fully formed package that you can add on other features onto, like, if you wanted to do instant replay, you wanted to work with Merrimack TV and tie into that. There's a lot of things that can be done, and I'm going to talk about some of the possible uses in a few minutes. Does anybody have any questions so far? So, we're looking for a package, like a complete package that somebody's going to Sherpa us through the whole thing. Pick the right company. There's been some companies that have been very, very helpful along the way in educating and getting that done, but something that's complete. And then you can add on other things later. Let me just go through. So, video. You think about the uses of the video. We can, certainly do advertising on that to raise money for funding it, for bringing in revenue for school programs, any program that would use that field, something that could be put in and used later on, which would require somebody to run it, which I'll use the concession stand as an example. So I was part of the team that built the concession stand, and I project managed the concession stand from start to finish. I led it the whole way. Now, any program that's in the school that uses that field can use that concession stand. And I make myself available to any program that needs to know how to use it, to come in, how do you use it, what's the proper thing to do, how do you store food, all that stuff. I'm more than willing to do the same thing for the scoreboard. So I'll see this cradle to grave. I'll help pull it together. I'll project manage it, and this will be all volunteer. And then once we get going, then I'll be there to Sherpa and train people on how to use it as we get trained, and bring other people in, other volunteers along the way. It's a good use of my time. So, you can do rotating ads, you can tie video into the system, you can do video replay, you could do instant replay. This is all things for later, right? Just, get the scoreboard in, get it working, and then you can improve and improve and improve as time goes on. Memorial pieces, I think, that's a near and dear to my heart, something that we could do on that board. We could do memorial pieces for loved ones lost in town, player profiles, that sort of stuff. Graduations, those memorials. Can Spirit use it? Can the band use it? Can non-varsity teams use it? Can we do streaming with it? There's all these applications that could be really useful to, even tie the community together even more, kind of thing. So just, some homework still to do. The existing conduit and the surface in the services. So the assumption is that conduit that goes from the booth to the current board has a combination of data and power. The good thing about the new consoles for the scoreboard itself, not the video board, the scoreboard itself, is that's all wireless now. So that scoreboard would be wireless. The console to keep scores for all different sports would be in the booth, but the video does require that data cabling, and of course it requires power. So the homework is what does it need, right? What does it need to actually pull it off? So that'll be something that'll have to be fleshed out. Is the conduit good? Can we reuse any of the cabling? Probably not. The conduit's probably good, and we can find out, but reusing the cabling is probably not going to happen. I still have to go through some demos of the software, still have a lot of due diligence to do with vendors, and please, if I'm starting to run out of time, let me know. I want to demo the software. I just really want to flesh this thing out and really, really make it, a fully formed package and do it right. And then, 1, 2, 3, 4 vendors. As soon as the words about this started coming out, vendors started coming out, which is cool. I've been working with several, and I can provide any details anybody wants to know. The other thing that I want to do is I want to. I've already opened up the conversations with the Nashua School District. I want to talk to people that have done these boards, and I want to talk to them. I want to go see them. I want to say, what do you love about them? What do you hate about them? What did you waste money on? What do you wish you have done? That sort of stuff. Just again, much more due diligence. And then just thinking about, all the sports that could use that, we talked about Spirit and band and all the, memorials and all those other things, but, football could use it. Boys soccer could use it. Girls soccer, boys lacrosse, girls lacrosse, track and field. The list goes on of, anybody that uses that field could find a way to use this board. So, and I mean, that's really the long and short of it, of where I'm at with this. And love to field any questions that you have or answer anything that you're curious about.
Yeah, love to open it up. Go ahead, Lori.
So a couple things. Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
So first of all, the Nashua School District, I would say maybe Lisa Gingras is the AD, and she lives in Merrimack.
Yep.
So I don't know. She probably has some information.
Yep. I've already spoken with her.
Yeah, good.
Yep.
And then I want to thank you very much
Of
for
course.
your past work. I mean, such a heart and passion for Merrimack, town of Merrimack. So really appreciate all you've done so far.
Oh, thank you. That's
all this
very
work.
kind. I love this town. I love the school district. You've done real right by my kids.
Yeah, and this is what makes Merrimack great. Like, we have volunteers, we have people that are so passionate and want to do the right thing. And the scoreboard thing has been, now talked about in the community a little bit. And so some people are like, why do you need a school board? And I will just say, for me, as a person that coached Merrimack High School for all those years, and I know Jenna probably knows this, in soccer, you have to keep your eyes on the field, especially when you're paying some of those very aggressive Manchester schools.
I went to
If
Manchester.
you take your eyes off that field, and you need to know this time, but you're looking at your watch,
Yeah.
anything can happen. And, as a coach, I've had a few incidents where kids really got hurt, and I saw it, but I was able to advocate. I was able to tell the ref. I was able to immediately take care. So it's more than just keeping score. It is about student safety. And I think that's just the final point that I want to make.
Well said. Well said. Yeah. When the scoreboard failed this season, one of the vendors, Dave Ayotte, I'll bring his name up because he's just been super educational for me, like spent a lot of time with me teaching me. He actually pulled a temporary scoreboard out of the Cleveland Browns and brought it to Merrimack. So we had a temporary scoreboard. It got wet and fried, but you know, it was a really nice gesture. And it's just, and he's got grandkids in the system too. So, you know, it's just another point to, you know, people coming together, you know, to get it done. Thank you for saying that. It's very kind.
Well, and another consideration too is, you know, our athletic fields are where we get the most visitors. That's where we get people from all over the state. And, you know, if we don't have a field that looks great and a scoreboard that's functioning, I mean, I feel like that sends a message about how we feel about our facilities here. So
agree.
I think it's
I agree.
a need for
Yeah,
sure.
and I'm working with Mr. French too, by the way. So I've got a friend that's an executive in the ad business, and he's offered to donate his time to work with me to come up with an advertising plan for that, and it's all based on impressions. So Mr. French and I are working together to, you know, pull together for all of the sports how many people are coming in. Running out of time?
No. Go ahead, Naomi.
What's the timeline on this? Because I know you said there was fundraising involved, and so that's what I'm curious about.
Yeah. So I'd love to break ground in the spring.
Do you? I mean, where are you? How are you doing with fundraising? Is that?
Well, so
Yeah.
it started. You know, SJ from Tomahawk has already started his fundraising efforts and deposited money. You know, towards the cause. So normally like we did with the concession stand, we would have come and sat and done this, and then, you know, got permission to proceed, and then go. So, you know, what the hope is that we come out of this with go. You know, let's do this, and, you know, then we'll go after it. Just go after it. So to answer your question, I'm hoping to break ground in the spring and have it ready, you know, for the first sports. That's the hope.
Okay, so forgive me if I'm missing this piece of information, but
Yeah.
are we doing this all through fundraising?
I hope so.
Okay, that's very exciting.
Yep.
That's very
Can
exciting.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah.
If we can't do it all through fundraising, Tom and I met with Sean early on in this process. For 50 grand, we can put up a regular scoreboard that looks like a piece of plywood. You have to go flip the numbers by hand, you know? So we could do that. However, we have a certain amount of unassigned fund balance. It's $500,000 there. So if we need to supplement what they do for like 50 grand, I would ask the board to, you know, approve the expenditure of unassigned fund balance of $50,000 for the purpose of the school board, and not go back and increase the operating budget at all. So you don't have to touch your budget. We have money set aside. You have the authority as the board to spend it. And if Sean needs a little extra push to get them done, because we want this done, we have the ability to do so with the approval of the school board.
That's very exciting.
And what is the price ticket?
So
Ballpark it.
So I'm not done. I'm not done. I still have two more. You're gonna find this hard to believe. People don't get back to you with really strange. So we're looking at about $250,000. We're looking at about $250K. So we got $220K for the complete package of the board, and then estimating around $30K for the construction, for the conduit and that sort of stuff. Now we've got lots of people coming forward saying, I want to help, I want to help, I want to help. I can do construction, I can help you with the conduit. That happens when it actually happens. You know, words are words, and, you know, action is action. So what the hope is that, you know, that actually does get donated, and we're just talking about materials, and the labor costs and the equipment costs are donated. And, you know, if we can erase some of that 30 grand, you know, with the research that I've done, the 220 grand for the board, we're not going to get it, you know, we're not going to get it for any less of that, any less than that, unless we make it smaller.
So my final thing is,
Yeah.
having three students who played lacrosse, you could never see the scoreboard because of where it was located,
Yep.
and then the sun. So it was really hard. So I do think if we're going to do it, I think we need to get a high quality, something that's going to last 30 years.
Yep.
And then the other thing for me is, you know, the school district is behind this project too. So I don't think it all has to come from fundraising, like Matt said. You know, I really think if you get to a point where you say, this is how much we're going to fundraise, we're grateful. But I do think this is also part of our responsibility to kids.
Yeah. So I'm going to tap into other people for fundraising. I do fundraising myself, tap into other people, but I'm a project manager. I'm a project guy. You know, so to get it done, I'll definitely leave all of that to the people that are really good at it. So, you know, whatever we can get for funds, you know, through whatever channel, mixing private, mixing town, you know, however that works, you know, that'd be great.
And I think, you know, if we're going to do advertising, obviously we're going to have to come up to a policy, but maybe, you know, some of that money could come back into, so we're going to advertise,
Yes.
we're going to get the scoreboard, we're going to put that money out, but we're going to take that money back and be able to supply athletics with that funds. So our athletic budget can be different, something like that. I think people
Yes.
would be like really excited about.
Yeah. So, you know, if you know, the deal with the taxpayers, you go and ask the taxpayers for a bunch of money, and the taxpayers don't have kids in the school system, or they do, or they don't, or they do sports. So this is going to give the people that are very interested the opportunity to be part of it. And then if there was any, you know, money that comes from the district, that advertising, you know, plan and execution on that, people would have to spend money to do it. You have to make it palatable. You know, that could flow back into the town. And then once it's paid off, then we could, you know, that could just go to just enhancing, you know, the school sports programs.
Well, and I would add to that, to make it even more exciting, I would add to the messaging. It wouldn't just go back to the athletic. It would go to the music department. It would go into our graduation services. It would go back into all of these programs at the school that use that field, use that scoreboard, because that's even a greater reach of people.
Yes,
than
I couldn't
just
agree more.
people who love athletics like me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and how they build young people. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Well, just a quick point of order. I was on the soccer team at Manchester West High School, and I was the appropriate amount of aggressiveness on my end. So
Listen, Merrimack holds their own, okay?
Yeah.
just want to, no red cards. I was orange card. Anyway, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And
I did have one other question, if
oh,
you don't
please.
mind. I apologize. It just came to mind. And I took your notes about lifespan and maintenance costs, because that was something that I wanted to think about. How long will this thing last? You know, you said you want something that'll last 30 years. I agree. But does it? You know, we want to make sure. And what's the maintenance cost look like, you know, moving forward? I think that needs to be
upkeep as well.
part of the plan as well. Now, if the scoreboard manufacturers and the people that sell them, if they offer a 0% or a low interest methodology for financing these things, is that something we could talk about?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because that'd be great. That'd be great.
Yeah, the only thing we'd have to have like a non-appropriation clause in the financing.
Okay.
Like we did a ventilation project years ago, 72 unit ventilators, non-appropriation clause. It just means if we don't pay or they don't appropriate the money for the payment, that they can take the scoreboard back. We all know that ain't gonna happen,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
So it's
Okay.
just a little thing.
Yeah, and that's basically all I have. And you know, Matt has my contact information. You know, anybody has any questions about anything, you know, please reach out. As much engagement from anybody that wants to be involved in this, please. You know, this is definitely a community thing. And thank you for the water.
Yeah. There you go.
Thank you for all of your work and energy.
Yes, thank you. We're lucky to have you.
Yeah,
I see all.
and Sean, like unlike other vendors, when you call him up, he gets right back to you. But I feel your pain, though. It's different, isn't it? Today,
Unbelievable.
it is.
Yeah.
You try and get stuff done, it takes 3 times as long.
Well, Happy New Year, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, Sean. All right. We now move on to our third round of budget presentations. Tonight we'll be hearing from Merrimack Middle School and Merrimack High School and their administrations representatives who are here tonight. So we will start things off with Merrimack Middle School, and tonight we'll be hearing from Chigris Bozeman and Kathy Hoppe.
Test.
Right. Well, we've been kind of just letting the presenters give their overview and kind of give us general information, and then we head into the question and answer period. So if you want to kick things off.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I apologize to my high school counterparts because I might not be as brief as maybe they want me to, only because I wanted to chat with you folks a little bit. As I've met a few of you, I'm Craig S. Bozeman, the principal, joined by the always astounding Kathy Hoppa, our assistant principal. And we wanted to, before we jumped into the business, just wanted to talk a little bit about the semester, a state of the middle school, I guess, as it were, only because this is new to the I'm new to the district. I'm new to the school. New to working with Kathy and a new team. And as I was talking to Mr. Powers, you could see the support right away. It's such a great place to be right away. And we just wanted to kind of paint a picture before we kind of get into the business at hand. So when I arrived, I was so thrilled to hear about the 4 words or the 4 guiding principles that the students in the previous year had come up with as to sort of what they wanted out of their school, out of the middle school student population. And it was a real exercise in student voice when they came up with their 4 words. And so we instantly have been rallying around that all semester and trying to put in systems and things in place that are going to provide that for the students. And the first one that they came up with was maturity, and that a young adolescent in the middle school and what that looks like for them. So with the work of Kathy and our new Dean of Students, Patrick Jennings, we worked to kind of really ramp up our MTSS system, our MTSSB system, to really provide some buy-in and some culture around, the social appropriateness of students in our middle school. And we've spent a lot of time with that. Our students have done a tremendous job responding and, really kind of buying into the things that we're putting together. They always talk about that tier 1 system, that universal piece of being, you want, 80% of your students to have 0 to 1, office discipline referrals. Right now, we have over 91% right now. So we really feel confident and excited about the work that has been happening there around that social maturity piece. So our students have really risen to that challenge for sure. The next thing that they talk about is being determined. And I think that a strong middle school is full of students who are determined. And we've spent some time academically with our new iReady and our new WIN blocks to be able to really kind of target some need and some areas of growth that students need to respond to, and, kind of encouraging them to be determined to accept that challenge and to not, accept no for an answer and keep going. And, just because you didn't get it right away doesn't mean that you won't eventually get it, and to be determined there. And so not just in the classroom, but also, of course, we celebrated here a month or so ago our state championship soccer team and our state champion runners. And we just had this beautiful concert, our winter concert with our band, our jazz band, and our chorus students. And if you've ever heard our band, you know that that doesn't happen overnight. That takes a level of determination itself. So again, the students really have risen to that challenge that we have. And kind of moving along with our core principles, the next one is supportive. And we wanted our teachers and our staff and our school and our students to show that level of support. We spent all of December with the theme of kindness and the theme of giving and caring, putting others in front of us. And, we can see that with even just in the cafeteria, students cleaning up after themselves, taking care of things that are not necessarily their own responsibility, but, for the greater good of our school. And, if you come to our sporting event, we have a support section, a student section, right? Kids being supportive there. Students came to our concerts. They came to our play. We did a production of The Bugs this last fall, and the students all came. And when they left, they all went to see their cast, their peers who were in the cast and things. So it's just a really good energy around that for sure. And then And finally, the last one that they came up was they wanted their middle school to be fun. That was the fourth word, was they wanted to have a good time. It's making some memories at middle school. And we've had some great events. We've had a dance. We've had some fun assemblies. We've had a lot of door decorating contests and spirit days. And it's just really been a positive semester for sure. So I wanted to try to kind of paint that picture of what it's been looking like at the middle school so far. And I'm going to be kind of transitioning into some of our business here today. None of that happens if we don't have a safe and secure school. And we know that, in this day and age, it's so critical and important to keep safety and security at the forefront of our work. And so we've spent this last fall working very closely with Lieutenant Wyman of Merrimack Fire, Detective Vanderside of Merrimack Police, our school resource officer, Detective Lindbaum, to really look at some of our safety procedures and protocols and fine-tune them at every chance we can get. And some of the things that we've also really tried to do with that is to educate the students a little bit more, rather than just, okay, we have a drill, but why we have these drills, and really kind of keep the best practices educated to them. We talked to universally as a school, small teams, individual education. We also spent some time working with parents and really tried to boost our parent communication every week, trying to push something out, especially when it comes to safety and any type of new safety protocols that we're introducing to the community. We really wanted to make sure that the parents were part of that conversation, how important that is. And one of the things that I was really impressed with was we were meeting with the town down at Bishop Field, which is our off-site evacuation location, to try to think about when we start practicing this, what it's going to look like, primarily when the snow starts to fly. And then where, they said, we can plow and put the snow here, so then that way the students and staff have a place to be. And one of the things when we were down there meeting with them was they realized that there's a sidewalk that kind of comes from the school, goes to the lights, but then the students would have to kind of round that, and there's no sidewalk into the actual parking lot. So they said, well, you need a path. And so the town, on their own decision, just said, well, we're going to build you a path. And so they actually cut an ADA, approved path that goes from the sidewalk into that parking lot. And just even though it seems like a pretty unique gesture to build a path, but what a message that sends, that the town is so behind school safety and so behind, making sure that we have the ability to do this. And so they built it for us. We exercised our offsite evacuation drill with a lot of success. And so we felt really good about that. And every drill that we have, it's not just checking the box that we did the drill, but we have to go back and look, where can we improve, what needs to be changed, so on and so forth. Which leads into kind of the first thing that we're really excited about, we're hoping we can get, is this electronic hall pass, is one of the things that we're hoping to budget for next year. Currently what we have, like any school, is we have a sign-in sheet by the door, sign-out sheet by the door. So if a student needs to leave the classroom for whatever reason, they sign out, time in, time out. And then the teacher on a little scrap of paper will write where the student's going and then send them off. And we've all been there, I'm sure. And what this provides us an opportunity to do, not necessarily, when I first heard e-hall pass, I thought like a digital ticket on my phone or something like that. But we're in a way for the day school, so no personal devices out, really focused on the academics for the day. But we also have our one-to-one devices, our Chromebooks. And so the way it looks with an e-hall pass versus the traditional pen and paper pass is that the student with a couple of mouse clicks they'll ask the teacher first, I'd like to go to the nurse. And then teacher approves, student has a couple of mouse clicks on their Chromebook, on their device. Teacher can approve it in a couple of different ways. Rather than the old signature, they could either come up to the student's device and hit their code, so then that way it approves it, or on their own teacher computer or their own device, they can click the mouse and approve the pass. And now the student goes, does their business, comes back in, they cancel the pass, and it kind of makes that practical thing more digital. But where I got excited about that was now, at any given moment, if there's an emergency situation, or if there's an emergency drill, one of the things we found at one time, student accountability is so important, because the teacher might not have their sign-in sheet with them, or they might not know. At any given moment, people with access can pull up their phones and know exactly where every student is in their school is going to be. And I don't think that there's a price on that. I think that in an emergency situation, that it could be extremely valuable. This electronic hall pass has a lot more bells and whistles than that, but for me, that was the selling point, was to be able to, at any moment, know okay, where they were supposed to be, or this person's at the bathroom, this person's at the nurse, library, what have you. And so that was one of the big selling points for me. That was the selling point. There was a different piece of it that I wanted to talk about as well. That was, again, something that I feel like we wanted to move forward with, was as part of our MTSS, we wanted to look at, instructional minutes lost. We have a few students, believe it or not, that every class they're wanting to go to the bathroom in, or every class they want to go to the nurse. And so we could calculate those things by taking everybody's sign-in sheet and everybody's, passes, and calculate the amount of instructional time that you were out and in the hallway, but this can do it for you in the click of a mouse. And so to be able to see that too, when it comes time to how can we support students and how can we limit the amount of time maybe they're in the hallway, or really encourage them to be in math class more because that's where they need, this can provide that data. So it's another data point for MTSS that it can provide. And so for those kind of things, is we're really trying to keep those as part of the focus of the year. Those were things that I really thought was important for us. And working with the teacher leaders and proposing it to them, they're chomping at the bit. The company Securely has offered us a 30-day pilot as a free trial. So if for some reason, hey, this isn't for us, then we don't have to, fully commit to something like that. But the teachers are very excited. The staff's pretty excited. And, I don't know if the kids are excited yet. We haven't really kind of gone that area. But like I was saying, knowing where each student is during an emergency was our sell point. It's going to be about $3.33 per student, and that's kind of an annual cost. So kind of using the projected enrollments for next year, we budgeted for $2,165, and that also includes a $500 one-time startup fee. There's some rostering and things that the company has to do. So this first year will be the most expensive because it's going to include that $500, but after that it's about $333 per student. But it could eventually dissolve the need for sign-in sheets, the need for the pads, so on and so forth. And like I said, it does provide, it's pretty robust system. Ms. Hoppe and I sat in a couple trainings now about it and presentations about it. And so there's some other benefits to it that we might not, dive in right away. When Mr. Powers was talking about the scoreboard, some of those extra bells and whistles we could potentially get to, but mostly just really the functional pieces of this student accountability, knowing where everyone is, and so on and so forth. So before we move to the next thing, I didn't know if I could talk more about the hall pass or answer some
Well, I
questions
just had a
about it.
couple questions real quick. So what's the is it its own platform, or is it a plug-in to like a Power School or something? Like that?
Nope, it's a web-based, so they'll be able
Web-based,
to access. It's got a phone app and a tablet app, but like we said, our students don't have, so that would be more for teachers or for admin to
So
have
how
on
would
the
a
phone.
student access that on their Chromebook? It would be a
Yeah.
website.
Correct, through class.
ClassLink.
Yeah,
Yep.
ClassLink. Gotcha. Cool.
I had a question for you on it. Does it allow you to look at an individual student and share that information with parents? Like if you had a student who needed extra support, you could sit down with the parents and say, every day in every class for 10, 12 minutes, and we want to help support him is the best way possible. Can you share that with parents for an individual student?
Meaning, do we have the ability to?
Yes. Does this have that ability?
Absolutely. And any type of intervention with a kid, we always want to keep, the parents are one of the most important people on our team. So any type of data we can share with them, this would be right with it.
Okay.
So it would, to your point, it would do twofold. It would help us to kind of help decide what intervention would be best, but then also, provide rationale for, if that answers your question.
Yes.
I just wanted to say, I sort of lead our MTSS team at our building, and to talk about instructional time lost and to be able to accurately chart that, I don't think people really realize how huge that is, because it is a data point, like you said, that can be used with parents to say, there's something going on when it comes to math. Let's get to the bottom of what it is, because they've lost X amount of time. This is the period, they're always going. And maybe it's just exactly that amount of time from lunch, but
Sure.
probably it isn't.
It's probably
You know what I
something
mean?
else.
Or
Yeah.
this student has been to the nurse 72 times this year. We can do that to some level with the nurse, because the nurse keeps pretty accurate. But to be able to really track patterns with students, this is going to be so powerful. And to me, I'm very excited about the safety, but I'm also really excited about that capability.
Which will lead us to ask the questions: why are you out of math?
Yes.
Potential limits, and once we can find that
And what
reason,
can we do about that?
now we can target. Now we can
Yes,
really
and now you've
make
got
some traction.
got a data point that says we need to provide support here. Okay, what support? Let's have a conversation that figures out with parents and student what is going on here.
Yeah, definitely.
So my only point is I want to wait. I can't wait to hear how it works after you implement it, the assessment of it, because when we talk about instructional time, I always think about, you know, the teacher too, the teacher who's teaching, who's now going to have the device, that's going to have to say, okay, you're going here. So they're in the middle. I got to go.
Yeah.
And how, you know, how is that going to role play out? Like, you know, like how many kids are going to be out of the classroom at the same time? And is it going to affect a teacher's ability to give instruction?
And that was a concern that I had right away too. What type of, you know, distraction or cut and interruption in the room would that provide? And so from what I've been gathering from feedback is it actually kind of streamlines it a little bit more, because it'll be the student who's clicking on theirs to create their pass. And while the teacher typically would have to go and fill out every line on the pass, now they can hopefully, and the same thing, we'll find out when we get there, you know, sort of.
You know, maybe I'm old fashioned, but the old days, like, here's your pass, right? Like,
Yeah,
there was no writing out pass.
Right,
Like,
right,
here's
no.
the bathroom
Yeah,
pass.
yeah.
So I get it. So there was no disruption for the teacher because the kid signed out, the kid
Yeah.
picked up the pass,
Yeah.
and now we have just one extra step. So I'm just curious how
Us
it's going to
too,
work.
yeah, for sure.
Hopefully it's like you said, hopefully they can just keep a window open on their screen. It can just be a mouse click.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm excited to hear how it all plays out.
Us too, and the teachers are excited too.
Yeah.
You know, to see. So we'll keep that going.
All right, let's keep on rolling.
All right, thank you. And so, you know, with the MTSS and the idea of, you know, really trying to work, really trying to raise the bar academically, really try to provide resources and information and text that is accessible and that we can manipulate in this and using our one-to-one devices to the best of our ability. One of the things that also was something that we wanted to highlight was from our science department and from our social studies department, where we were looking at subscriptions to both print and online materials. In science, the subscription is called Science World. And all of these subscriptions, to answer the questions from the board from this past weekend, were they are annual subscriptions. And so they would be things that would be an annual cost because they are like a periodical where they would come out in various forms throughout the year. And both departments would, you know, ideally like to have, you know, enough subscriptions for every student, but they understand that that might not be it. But so they tried to really focus on, you know, in science, they wanted to get at least 30 subscriptions of the print materials that could be recycled and used throughout the school or throughout their grade. And in social studies, their online junior scholastic program, they were really hoping to get for both 7th and 8th grade, but ideally for 8th grade, because it has a lot of civics education information that they would like to have. One of the really exciting parts about the digital version is that teachers can provide varying reading levels to each student to make it a little bit more accessible. It has more manipulative type of material again to kind of really bring it to life for them, interactive videos, so on and so forth. So that was something that the social studies and science departments were hoping to build. And in the science department, I guess they've been using in the past, but then trying to find, they've been pulling from different budget items, different line items to try and, you know, pay for that. Whereas, you know, they would really like to just have it be its own line item. So those were kind of the online subscriptions. And I know that there was that question from the boards about if is it annual or is it a one-time thing. So hopefully that helps answer that.
It does. Any other clarifying questions?
I want to clarify because $3,000 increase is significant
Yeah.
from previously budgeted. Is this replacing? Is this adding on? Is this beyond the regular classroom curriculum? That's the thing I'd like to kind of distinguish.
Yep, it's an additional resource for social studies. It's one they've been using in science, but it's additional one for social studies this year. They're really focused on the civics education piece and really trying to find good accessible materials that that can help our teachers really, provide a robust experience for the kids, and then also that they can access and work with it and manipulate and pull information from text. A lot of the, the data we're receiving from iReady as we're about to move into our second diagnostic is, some areas where students, can retrieve some textual evidence for argumentative writing, so on and so forth. And in the social studies, this could really help to boost that and provide an extra resource.
And can I just add, that is a stopgap. The civics units at the 8th grade level are new as part of that RSA that we've talked about. And there aren't a lot of great textbooks available right now. So one of the things that I had talked to Jill about, I assume it's Jill Petrello, is there something that we can use in the interim as we're figuring out the rest of the curriculum? And this is what we had talked about, much cheaper than a textbook. And as the state continues to, look at what does civics education encompass, they seem to keep adding to that RSA. So we're trying to, have something that's also dynamic. So that was part of the reasoning there.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt.
that's perfect. Thank you.
Great.
And then some other questions that we wanted to kind of address with the board too was from our music department as well. Some good kind of learning materials that were involved there. The first one was from our chorus program that we have, where last year the chorus classroom was being held on the stage, and it was kind of a room situation. And so this year we were able to get them into a general ed classroom, not a chorus classroom, but it is a general education classroom. And from what I understand, the chorus classrooms have a cabinet for sheet music and for their books. And that's a very kind of specific choral cabinet that we just don't have. And so we were looking to invest in a temporary one that can move, one that, even though it's not a full chorus classroom, we can at least replicate that experience for the student and provide that need for them to, again, really kind of keep the spotlight on our chorus and kind of encouraging that. So
And that will save the mountain of lost sheet music that occurs from not having something like that. So that is
a thing or two about that.
I do.
guess. Okay.
Yeah. A lot of lost music at the middle school.
Right. So I think that was hopefully trying to be proactive. I think I'm a little bit on that. And then also with our music department, with our band, which currently has 77 enrolled students, 29 jazz band members, and we have 17 members who are percussionists, which to my understanding is a lot.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. Next year it's looking to be even more, around 20 is what she's thinking is for percussionists. And we currently have a set of bells that was purchased with the school back in 2004, made of steel and is virtually indestructible, and we still have. But there's a need for a second set. And so rather than, go cheap and have to reinvest in this again a little bit down the road, is to really make a strong investment this year and to match the quality of the one that was purchased 20 years ago that is still holding up really well. So now we have this to hopefully invest in a second set to be able to have for the remainder. And so that was where the big ticket item for the bell, as well as a snare drum and some other pieces. And additionally, with the music equipment, finding new instruments like this, apparently it was never a line item either. This is why you might see like a 000, and then all of a sudden this new one was because, again, we had to, when these things were in need, we had to try to find the money, and it just makes sense to, create a replacement system, create what we might need, and then to invest strongly, so then that way, when we next year, the year after, when we have 25 percussionists, we at least are able to take care of that. So hopefully that answered some of the board's questions on that.
Yeah, well, and I've bought a few bell sets in my time, and Yamaha's a great brand. They're tried and true. They will last forever. I had just never seen one that pricey before, and so I was just wondering, like, are we getting a professional Yamaha bell set here, or are we getting an intermediate or beginner level? And I definitely agree with, we want good quality stuff. I don't want stuff to break in a year and a half, so I'm all for that. I had just never seen one that pricey before.
Sure.
That's a
Well,
big
and I was
price.
on Yamaha's website, and I also looked at Musician's Friend and Sweetwater, and this is the second most expensive set. And I bought quite a few bell sets over the years, and I think we can do a little bit better and still get a high quality, long lasting set than this one, because the next one up from this is 11,000. So I you've got two board members here who've walked down this road and know this, and I think we can get a quality set for a little bit less.
So what you're saying, back in 2004, I should have bought twice as many when the price was cheaper, because that was part of the original equipping of the building. So
Right, because most instrument manufacturers have, you know, designated levels of like intermediate, professional, beginner level instrumentation. And when I saw that, I was like, this must be a pro set, and which is again top of the line, best of the best. But I was just maybe wondering if there was other options out there. That's all.
I know she got the quote from Manchester Music and Arts, right?
Yeah.
So isn't that exclusively for schools? I guess not.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, they do.
that-
I work with music and arts all the
Okay.
time. They're an international. They work with everybody. So, but they do give educator discounts. So I'm sure she got a discount. So that probably means it was more expensive.
It was the $11,000 one.
Yeah.
Happy to look into that
Yeah.
more though, for sure.
Well, first of all, these two would know far better than I would. So if they say that we could do that, I'm sure that they know what they're talking about. Certainly Ken is right in the thick of that. While we're on the topic, though, of this is something that I love to talk about. I love athletics. Everyone in this town, I'm on record as knowing everybody knows how much I love athletics. I'm also very much an arts person. I always like to point out how this budget looks when I go through and I look at athletics versus the arts in any budget, because I find that that's an interesting. It's not a criticism in any way. It is just, this is what we do. So if you look at the Merrimack Middle School budget, and this is really for the community, the athletic budget is $43,000 and change. Arts at Merrimack Middle School, which includes music equipment, all state, supplies for general music, and new instruments and equipment, keeping in mind that band is a class, not an extracurricular, is $12,000. So I just want to, there it is. I also want to say that Merrimack Middle School has an incredible theater program, an incredible
For sure.
theater program that gets $0 in the budget. Not a criticism. I think that's just something we need to point out. This is in no way trying to say we should do anything with the athletic budget. What I'm saying is we need to continue to move towards equity, not that we have to make sure we're spending as much on arts as athletics, but that we value both and are investing in both. That's just what I'll say. That's just my
Okay, yeah.
statement.
And I just want to say, one of the things with athletics is you have to pay for referees. And so every time you have any kind of athletic competition, that's going to be a lot of money coming out of that budget. And it's 2 referees for every sport. So that's a huge, if you break that down, then you're going to see a different number.
Yeah. So just because I said that's how the arts were broken down, I specifically said it. Athletics is broken down into officials, transportation, and supplies for 43, and then arts was 12. Yeah.
All right. Moving on.
And then kind of in the same world of kind of maintaining and keeping things safe and ready to go. In our tech ed, you'll notice that we have some replacement needs. First one is our 3D printer that was purchased years ago has become obsolete because of its age. It's not keeping up with the technology. It's slow. And in fact, even to provide replacement parts and materials for it becomes costly. And so it's, technology, when you first buy it, it's great. And then all of a sudden it becomes outdated. So our 3D printer is in that area right now. And so there was a request to purchase a new 3D printer. And our band saws are 10 plus years old, and they don't have HEPA filters or HEPA cleaners to kind of absorb the dust. So we were hoping to try and get some new band saws to be able to clear some of those out. And we've developed a replacement plan to update our cafeteria tables, the same ones again that were purchased with the school, and by purchasing 2 every year. So or every 2 years. We wanted to make sure that we had good cafeteria tables for students. And so those were kind of our things that were maybe, a little higher or new, and we wanted to kind of highlight and answer questions about those pieces right there. And so we certainly appreciate your time there, and I'm happy to answer any more questions, or at least try to bring some questions back to get some more information for you.
Sure. Open it up to questions from the board.
Since you just mentioned cafeteria tables, where are we in the plan? Like, if you're doing 2 every year, where are we?
We just got our first 2 this last year coming in, and so we'll be purchasing 2 more. And those, are big ticket items. They're not cheap, but
So we're just starting, and we're the ones we're replacing. Are they the original to when the middle school was built?
yes, I believe so.
We bought some good cafeteria tables.
They
back
were
then.
they are good. They are good, but
I have a question about the cafeteria table. So
sure.
it says delivery and assembly. We don't put them, our maintenance people don't put them together, or what is that?
If you buy them from any company, they come in, they're pretty much fully assembled, but they put everything together for you. The initial installation, the initial assembly of we don't give our custodians a bag of pieces and sit there. Like, when you buy that furniture from IKEA and you got 40 million pieces to put together. No, they do that work for us. So when the cafeteria tables come in, they're assembled.
It's kind of how they itemize it, I think.
Yeah.
Right. They
Correct.
piece that in for us.
Any other questions? Well, guess that's it. Well, thank you so much
All right.
for coming in, and you can send Matt all the updated information.
Yes. It's coming his way. Thank you,
great.
everybody. for your
Thank you
time.
so
Have
much.
a great evening.
All right, moving on to Merrimack High School budget presentation with Steve Clare, Rich Zampieri, and Jill Hanlon.
Happy New Year, everybody.
You too.
Set this sign in here for a minute. Before I start, I actually do want to mention a little experience I had this past Friday. Our unified basketball team played its first game in a number of years over at my old high school I worked at in Milford, and it was a great experience. We got some good video, and I believe we play 4 more games this year, all on Fridays at 3:30 if you're available to pop in. I talked to some students at our Alvern game Friday night, and they're going to try to get a student section there, and I believe cheerleaders might be involved too, so it should be a fun event. So let's see. So I'm going to start with my budget statement because we do have a lot of questions from some of you that we need to answer tonight. So in the Merrimack High School budget for the 2024-25 school year, you will find an overall increase of less than 5%, with many level funded items. The decision to move the extended learning opportunity / alternative graduation pathway budget from the student services budget to Merrimack High School budget is part of that increase, as well as Mr. Chavanel instructed us to move all supply budgets up 15% because the cost of supplies have increased dramatically. No big ticket items this year. We have some items requested. One is in the science department. The science department is requesting new physical science textbooks. Physical science is required of all freshmen in the district. Due to losses during the pandemic, there are not enough text for every student to have one, and the current edition does not have an online component. The current books were published in 2008, so it's time to replace those. In our tech ed department, the woodworking program is asking for a replacement for the cutter head on the planer. The carbide cutter head would reduce noise levels by at least 20%, save energy on future maintenance costs, and bring the planer up to industry standards. Our co-curricular budget, there is a need to increase both co-curricular supplies and co-curricular transportation. The number of clubs and academic teams continues to grow. A new theater advisor has much more budgetary needs for a more active program. First Robotics has made national competitions regularly over the last several years, and the travel costs are often high as they have to be purchased last minute depending on qualification. Our athletic department, the athletic department is renewing the practice transportation budget to ensure that all athletes, including underclassmen without licenses, have a safe means to get to practices on off campus. This includes sports as soccer, bowling, golf, tennis, swim, indoor track, hockey. Many of our sports have practices off campus. So we're looking to reinstate bus transportation for those students who need it. And finally, an area of increases in our testing area. There's a significant increase in the testing line to accommodate administering the PSAT test to freshmen and sophomores, which will we begin this spring. So that's basically the statement. Last year we took it upon ourselves to take all your questions and provide answers for them. Is it okay if we read your questions and go ahead and answer them, or would you like? Is that okay for us to do that?
It's fine with me.
We kind of went through it today. The first question was from Mrs. Halter. And she said, what benefits does the PSA testing offer? I noticed that this line wasn't funded last year. Was the required, part of that question is, was the required testing being paid for on a different line before? And in the past, we have not paid for PSATs. So in discussions with Amy earlier this year, we felt the need to progress monitor our freshmen and sophomores, students, particularly in English and math. This spring, we're going to administer the PSAT to 9th and 10th graders on the same day as we administer the SAT to juniors. In the past, students signed up to take the PSAT. They did pay for it on their own. They did it on Saturdays. We typically had right around 100 sophomores sign up to take it. And this year that did occur as well. We did do that again this year. But Amy had asked that we put in funding for next year's budget so we can continue to administer the PSAT and the SAT to freshmen through juniors. So that was the answer to that question. Naomi, do you have any follow-up?
Nope, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just add one thing while we're talking about the PSAT?
Yeah.
As a parent of a student, your first kid comes around and you're like, should my kid take the SAT as a sophomore? And you're like, it's optional, so no, right? And then so I never really knew. But the other benefit besides actual basic progress monitoring is our kids get to used to doing that test. So when they go to take it, the third time as a junior and they're getting ready to go then take the SAT, they are far more prepared. It's going to help our SAT scores go up as well. And that's something that I've learned as a parent that I was like, oh, well, it's optional. No, you don't need to do that. And then I was like, shoot, I should have done that. You know what I mean? And so I think that's a huge move in the right direction, even just in boosting test scores, which we can all say whatever we want about the test scores and what they really reveal about each student, but they are a metric that colleges use. And we want to be able to give our kids the best advantage and certainly practice with that SAT, PSAT. That's what they need. So I love that idea.
I also want to add in, we could be here all night of the changes that's happening in the school counseling office at the high school. They're just so impressive from Kay and the new people you've added and the reorganization. It's just phenomenal. But one of the things that also the PSATs, once students take the exam, their parent has access to all of the materials in the College Board site. So it's not just for students that are getting ready to go to a 4-year school. There are other materials and supportive information in there for families to decide, is my student ready for a 4-year school? Should they go to a technical college? What are scholarships that are available? There's just a lot more information in that College Board account that, in addition to the progress monitoring, which we weren't doing at all at freshmen and sophomores, so that we can target our instruction. But I'm really excited about the resources that families might find helpful as they help their student make that next decision.
And I'd like to add on to what you said about targeted instruction. Because the College Board often changes the test, it's really important to see, because let me use math as an example. We got math teachers sitting up here. Every cohort class is a little bit different. When you see those scores, you can see that, yes, you've covered everything in the curriculum, but whoa, they really need to work on word problems. So we are going to be doing word problems in every single class on every single assignment, because guess what? Last year's PSAT had, it was like 70% word problems in the math sections. And so some students are great. You may have a whole cohort that does great that year on them. And then you have another year where you've got a mixed bag. And so being able to see year over year what areas of instruction your particular students this year need is so helpful on that grander scale than just inside Merrimack.
Well, and aren't juniors required to take the PSAT?
Yes, it is their required state assessment.
Right. So this is good prep.
Yep.
You know, you're not walking into it blind at this point. So great. Thank you.
Excuse me, the next question from Board Member Halter is about various instructional equipment lines. So she's curious about all the instructional equipment and what a life cycle tends to be, and how many hours of use does each get per year, and how old is our equipment generally, and how often do we replace versus repair. And she notes that this is a broad question, just trying to understand our philosophy about that line item. And I would say that each year, prior to the budget process, we ask department heads and staff to review their needs and to inform us of what needs of theirs need to be repaired, maintained, or replaced. For example, equipment that is unsafe takes a priority. But we also have a yearly replacement of normal wear and tear. For example, photography is one of our most popular courses, and so we annually try to replace 2 cameras because on any given year, 160 kids, different kids, are touching those cameras. Is that?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You can keep that, Rich. I'll share with Jill.
Okay.
Next question is also from Mrs. Halter. She wants to, it's a practice transportation. She wants to know why we're reinstating it. And when I first started 3 years ago, it was $20,000 in that line item for practice transportation. And I spoke to the AD at the time because we hadn't used much, if any of it. And, you know, at the time, I was told that there wasn't a lot of interest. They couldn't procure drivers. So we cut, the following year, we cut it from 20 to 10 or 22 to 11. So we cut it in half. Same thing, my second year, it just wasn't being used. Either kids weren't aware, or we couldn't, the AD at the time couldn't work with the bus company to get transportation, to get buses. So we cut it out of the budget. Well, this year we had an interim AD, Peter Bergeron, who's a wheeler and dealer and has connections with everybody and has been working with the bus company for 20 years. And he was able to procure some buses for some transportation for some of our players to practices. So, you know, we want to, you know, it's just, I'm very uncomfortable with not providing not being equitable and providing transportation to those younger students that don't have licenses, maybe younger students who don't have parents that'll drive them to practices, younger students who may not want to drive with upperclassmen. So we're reinstating that $10,000 to continue to grow in that area so we can provide transportation for all.
And I'll add, I was the board member last year who brought up that it's a liability issue for students to ride with other students. And there's no way to enforce, has a student had their license long enough that they can have someone that's non-family member in their vehicle? Do the parents know? All of those kind of issues. And so I'm actually supportive of this being back in the budget, especially for those non-drivers.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll say that as a parent of a soccer player, when my student got to the high school, I remember being shocked that our kids were, you know, practicing off-site and there was no transportation.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a stay-at-home parent, but there were other parents who were not, and they were wholeheartedly uncomfortable with their kids driving with these other older kids. At the time, they didn't even know really, but it was the only way for them to get there. And you had to sort of take your discomfort and put it aside, because what else were you going to do? Right? I mean, I was a stay-at-home mom. I could fill my van, but you know, I did the best I could. But most of the kids were like, "No, we don't want to ride in your van. We want to ride with the seniors. They're cool. I am not cool." You know what I mean?
None of us are.
I mean, I think I'm cool, but you know what I'm saying? And you're right. Like, it's a liability issue, and parents are concerned about it. And I remember at the time thinking, I cannot believe there's no transportation. Like, we have created a situation that is not okay. So I am also wholeheartedly in support of this being back in the budget.
Wonderful. Thank you. Next question is for Mrs. Halter again, and that's me again, and it's regarding athletic supplies. Is the software new? What's the driving increase in this line? The software is not new. Remind and Family ID have been used previously, and the $15,000 increase in athletic supplies was based on the request from Mr. Chavanel to increase all supplies in the district by 15%.
Okay. The next question regards science text. And the question is, how many years will it take to replace all the texts? And I can certainly answer that in terms of our philosophy about all content areas. As the district reviews and revises the various curriculums and the plans we have for that over the next several years, I think those groups will best determine the current text, whether they meet their needs or not. The current age, condition, and number of text is also a factor. Recently, for example, in 2018, math, district math curriculum, and so math was able to buy Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and geometry text. Hopefully they'll last for 10 plus years in that sense. In 20, we did chemistry. 21, we did the most popular social studies class, criminology, and now last year, obviously, we did biology, and this year, physical science. So I mentioned last year at this table that it was sometimes we say to a department head who asks, it's just not your turn. And we try to be fiscally responsible as well as meet the needs of our kids and their instructional needs.
Any follow-up, Mrs. Halter?
Okay. Oh,
You're next
I'm
again.
next again. That's all right.
No.
Those plenty. Are you following a plan with these regards furniture? Are you following a plan with these replacements and how many years to replace everything? Well, we, unlike the middle school, we do have a plan, but we're only replacing one cafeteria at a time. And by the time that actually happens with all of them, I'll be long gone. That's for sure. We have lots of tables there. But our budget also encompasses other things besides CAF tables, desk combos, chairs, and lab stools that become unrepairable. Too many welds are a standard purchase. And recently, there's been a lot of increase in interest in standing desks for both staff and students. So we try to meet as many needs as we can, but still, remaining within a fiscally responsible line item. I do. I'm lucky. Let's see here. Okay, this one is in regards to computer tech in terms of projectors, chargers, and cables. And again, asking if there's a replacement plan and how many years to sort of replace everything. Well, in regards to computer equipment, we work in conjunction with the district technology, Mr. Pelletier, in trying to meet the needs of all of our students, and our part of the pie is what you see in our budget. So we are replacing our projectors with those interactive display panels, and this year we were able to supplement that plan with a couple of extra panels. But we are also budgeting for, as we've gone to one-to-one Chromebooks, having a charger in every classroom, because sometimes students tend to forget to charge their Chromebooks at night. And yes, and they'll want to run off to the library to get a replacement and miss some instructional time. So, and then also some spare cabling. And even though the tech department that is in our building is able to work with our students, we like to be able to sort of quickly adjust and respond to student needs.
Thank you. And I love the idea of just having the charger in the classroom. So you could be like, no, you don't need to go anywhere. Plug it in right here.
And that was the last question from Mrs. Halter. Mr. Martin sent us a couple. And
Yeah, and you've already answered them because Naomi's really good at asking questions. So my two questions, I think. Oh, well, go ahead.
Well, it was Jill's turn to talk, so we were hoping.
I don't want to rob you of that. But I'm sorry. My first question, you've already answered, but
Yep.
the next one did not.
You were asking what software is being
Yes,
discontinued?
please. And I think I have a guess, but I'll let you.
Yep. So they'd like to discontinue Smart Music.
Yes.
Because the costs are increasing and they the usage is decreasing.
Yes.
So the catalog is less and less options. So they have found Sight Reading Factory, which they have found to be very compatible with their curriculum. It also is functional with Google Classroom and other platforms that we can use.
Yes, smart music has taken such a downhill turn, and kids hate it. Like they just really hate it. I used to use smart music, and so when I saw that, I said, I bet they're getting rid of smart music. And Sight Reading Factory does what you need it to do, and it's like a fraction of the cost. So
Yes.
that was my guess, but thank you.
All right, that was it for Mr. Martin, and now we have Mrs. Rothhaus's questions, and I believe, Rich, you have the first one.
Actually, you do.
Oh, I do?
It's green.
The handout.
Oh, yes, okay, my bad. So Mrs. Rothout asked for a number and list of high school classes that are under 12 students. And I do have that, and I thought a hard copy might be best.
Oh, thank you.
One thing I wanted to point out was when you take a look at it, for example, if you scroll down the first page and you see English 10, we have 2 English 10 classes that have 10 students at a max capacity of 22, but that's 2 of 12 sections that we're teaching right now. So we do have 10 other sections that have over or well over the 12 number. So yeah. That's why I use that as an example.
Not this time.
So I have a question.
Sorry to all.
Yeah.
So, unlike, for example, the advanced woodworking, is that advanced student in like a woodworking class with the regular woodworking and we're differentiating instruction, or is there's an advanced class with one student?
These are all singletons. These are all, yeah. None of them are
I just
combined.
wanted to see.
Yeah, that's the
Section-
number
all
of
right,
sections.
I see.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's the number of sections we're teaching this semester.
I have a question.
Sure.
Mandarin? Are the Mandarin classes really that small? Is that true?
These are accurate numbers.
My kid doesn't know how to count.
I mean, we took them off Power School this morning.
I'm just my kid, and I literally was like this year. He was telling me how big his class was, apparently, comparatively.
Mandarin classes that are combined that aren't on this, you think?
No, there's only 4
Yes.
sections.
Yes.
She has 4/10.
Yep.
I mean, 4/5.
He did.
So just so I understand, and I think I do, but maybe I don't. So the English 10, going back to what you were saying, you're saying 10 out of 22 and 12 sections. So is this the number for all 12 sections?
No, that's just 2 sections.
2 sections.
The other 10 have 12 or over.
12 or over.
And many much higher. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So
Oh,
I
I
wanted,
see.
yeah,
Okay.
go, sorry, Mr.
Gotcha. Yeah. Now it makes sense. All right. Sorry. go
So
ahead.
for another example, if you take a look at food chem, we're offering 5 sections of food chem this semester. There's 2 that have 9 in it, and the rest are over the 12 number that you gave me, Lori. The other 3.
All right. Yeah. So the ones listed here are, as you said, 12 and under only. So the other sections have more than 12, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Just to clarify, so when you say like counting 5 out of 23, you would enroll 23 in one section? If there was a demand?
If there was a demand.
Okay. So like on Mandarin, you would enroll 30 in one section?
We would, because it's in a regular classroom with 30 desks.
Okay. Okay. That
So
just helps me
if there
clarify.
was that kind of demand, we could offer it.
Okay. All right. Thank
I
you.
guess when you're building the schedule in Power School, it actually is a digital representation of the classrooms and how many seats can fit in the classrooms
Right.
and what the criteria that administration and guidance is putting on the enrollments. So that's how it knows to go and place kids. So that's all we're talking about here, right?
And some were restricted by, workstations, like food chem only has 16 workstations.
Well, science, you can't have more than 24 in a science class anyway. That's the state regs.
Intro to
So-
guitar, you may only have 10 guitars.
Correct.
Right. Yeah.
I guess the follow-up question, which you don't have to answer now, but I know we have some classes that have 28, 29, 30 students in a class. So that would be on the other side of this, that we have some classes that are overcrowded. And so how to balance those resources.
It's a good point. Thank you.
Well, do we want to let them continue? Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead. Thank you for this.
Thank you. You're welcome. I believe it's you, Rich.
Correct. So where are we? Okay, we get to talk about science equipment and microscopes. So how many new microscopes do we buy? How do we recycle or replace? And what is the process? Well, actually, the microscopes are reconditioned and repaired as necessarily annually. And so you'll see in the budget maybe $170 for parts. We rarely need to replace them. That individual does a very good job of stripping them down and putting them back together. The most recent department head in his time as a department head never ordered a microscope. And it's a rare memory for me to order a microscope. But however, if there was a need, and at the beginning of the year, the science department said that we need 5, we would order 5 in that sense. Okay. In terms of who maintains the chemical supply closet and how much do we spend on the chemicals, we also have another different science teacher who goes in and does inventory and charts the needs of the department. And as part of the larger department supply line item, the chemicals account for about $6,700 this year over 3 different content areas.
Can I ask that question? Because I know in Nashua, they actually have a paraprofessional who's hired to do science lab setups for all chemicals because they lock the closet and they want to make sure that the chemicals are mixed correctly. And so I always just worry about who does that work and how do we know that we have enough for all the labs we're going to do? Who does does every science teacher put in for chemicals, or do you do just a major order for chemicals?
But it's broken down by the different classes. So biology will have their chemical requests. Chemistry obviously will have theirs, and so on. And that's based on past practice. It's a general supply budget. So if all of a sudden there was a higher need for some chemical in one of those areas of biology, all of a sudden you could take from another supply line or take from one of the other classes that maybe not be using them as much. So, we get to make sure that all the chemicals they need are provided and, as you say, evenly distributed to all the different teachers.
Right. And just, going back through my history, we just want that innovation. So a chemistry teacher comes up with this great lesson, all right, can I take the biology teacher's chemicals? Because now I need new chemicals. Can we still order chemicals? Is there just that ability?
We've never run out of chemicals for the classes.
Okay, I'm glad.
No,
We
no,
never
they-
run out
you
of
know,
chemicals.
there you go.
Thank you for that answer.
Yeah.
And the science teacher that oversees the chemical room, it's checked every year but and it sits very well organized and documented, and they have everything they need, and if they need something additional, we'll make sure we request it.
And if I recall, we provide a stipend for that when we looked at when we had the contract last year. So.
All set with that one? All right. Jill, you have the next one.
Yep. So the next question was actually yours too. It was the copier lifespan, which I think we're going to defer to Mr. Chevenel. I don't know if we don't know that information. We'll be happy to find it out, but I
That's
don't know
because
if you
it's
know.
top secret. I don't really divulge that. Okay, the story of the copiers in the Merrimack School District. I've been handling those for a number of years. Nancy Rose came over. She kind of said, I can do that. And she put in a really good system called PaperCut. So it really tracks, every teacher has a code when they go to make a copier so people don't get crazy in the heat and make 4 billion copies and we don't know about it, right? So that was really neat that we did that. And plus, as an effort, because we used to have inkjet printers all over the place, and everybody knows how expensive ink for inkjet printers is, and it was totally ridiculous. And so that was years ago. So we took those over summertime. We kind of experienced the wrath of the staff when they were missing and gone, but we replaced them with centralized copiers. You know, we've got some really good heavy duty machinery here. The question is, you know, how many we have 14 copiers at the high school right now. 8 of which were new as of 2021. That's the last time. You've got a capital cost, and then you have a service and supply cost. On the ones that we are currently leasing, it's around $2,000, $2,500 a piece, depending upon annually, depending upon the throughput of the copiers. How do we figure out what the lifespan is? Well, lifespan is really kind of dictated by how many copies we have on the machines. The high school runs around 3.5 million copies a year. That is average for a high school. Overall, district-wide, we do around 14 million copies a year. I've seen that kind of go down a little bit in the years because everything's going more digital. That's a good thing. Before it was up well over, well over that amount. Because everything, we'd get books, we'd copy workbooks, we'd have to, parse everything out to the schools. And most of the jobs were done at the high school. So the high school has a few copiers that we replaced in October of 21 that had 2 had 4 million copies on them, 1 had 3 million copies of them. And by the time they get up to 4 million copies, they're done. And we do own some. If they go to the end of their 4-year lease and they still have life in them, we'll keep them on. But we pay a little bit more in service on them because they're not under the annual lease. And we pay a little bit more on supplies. Maybe a penny a copy, a penny a click, as they say in the business. So we try and maintain a balance between new and then replacements. And we've been working this for a number of years, and I think we've saved the district a lot of money. So there's instructional equipment repairs, which is an 8430. Then there's non-instructional equipment repairs, which is 8431. That's just all copiers. And sometimes it's hard to differentiate what are the copiers for educational use versus the D95 that they have in the main office over at the high school, which is administrative use. So we try and parse them out. I don't even know why, accounting wise, we have to, because there's no reports that I've ever done for the state that says what's your instructional equipment repairs versus non-instructional. So at some point in time, I think I'd like to consolidate those two, but we've been doing this way for a number of years, so we might as well just keep doing that. But the lifespan is when you get a big production machine, it reaches around 4 million copies, and it's been here for 4 or 5 years, that's gone. We never just buy copiers, because what you're buying is a liability at the end of the lifespan. It's a piece of hazardous waste. You got to call Clean Harbors or whatever to get rid of that thing. You can't take it, bring it to the dump, or sell it to somebody, or give it away, or put it on the side of the road with a sign that says free, because no one wants it anymore. You can't get parts for it. You can't get toner for it. You can't get anything for it, and it's just it's a hazmat thing. So what we do is we lease these, then sometimes we keep them to see, you know, we keep them after the lease is over because we own them. We save money on it, and then at the end of their term, when they're deemed done, we recycle them. The company comes in, give us a new one. We shift the burden from the maintenance cost to the capital costs, and it all kind of evens out. So we've been fairly fortunate with working with a very good company and companies over the years to kind of keep this stable over the years. So, but there's a lot of copiers in this district, and we've, like I said, I think we had probably 150, 200 inkjet printers at one point in time years ago that we just had to get rid of because it was just so expensive, and we saved a lot of money going this route. So that's kind of the long version of the lifespan of a copier, and how many do we have, and how do we, you know, decide whether we lease versus buy. We don't buy, we always lease them, and when it's time to go away, they go away. And if they break down, we make a phone call, we get a technician right away. Because when the copier goes down, it's usually right before a school board meeting or deliberative session or something like that.
Final exams.
And you're like going, I'm not happy when that happens, so that's not good. So we try and keep everything operational and functional, and with the least cost method available. So
May I just make a couple of just quick points also? Pick up on what Matt said. You know, sometimes we're asked, why don't you buy your copies? And as Matt said, it's much better from a fiscal practice to have that consistent, stable appropriation every year instead of a large capital outlay request in 1 year. Then it's nothing for 5 years, and then you get another large capital outlay request, which becomes quite difficult. We also have questions over the years. Why don't you have a centralized copy center? On the assumption that centralizing that function will save money. It doesn't work because lots of staff make kind of sort of in the moment copies and need those when they need them. Some school systems have tried it in the past, but they've abandoned it because it's not an efficient way. It's not an effective way to deliver those materials to classroom teachers in a timely manner.
We actually have a copy center at my school, and there are pros and cons to it. I don't know anything about what it costs, so that's not where I'm coming from. As far as like a efficiency standpoint, I find that I run to the copy machine down the hall much more frequently.
of course you do,
that.
and you know what that copy machine
Because
costs
I
your
consider
district?
it's the fact that I'm a poor planner more than anything. Because I had to like change the way I planned things because I had to send things down there like a week ahead of time as opposed to like 10 minutes before class start, which is usually what I'm doing. So that's why I don't
But
use
yeah,
it.
the copy machine down the hallway, that's the convenient one, that's not the high volume, is for like 4 cents a copy.
Right.
But the one that's the production machine that is not as convenient, especially when you have a high school, it's 166,000 square feet. You've got one on the second floor, one on the first floor, a couple in the office, a couple over there, you know, big production machines. And to have a centralized station, it just takes teachers away from that. Everything's networked. So you can be at your computer and boom, you hit it. You run down the hallway, you can pick it up from a good copy machine that's not costing you a lot per copy. And you don't have the tendency to go for the one that's really next to you that's really expensive. So
And I was just going to say, so when I was at Merrimack Rich-Nosas, we had a centralized, and so what would happen is you'd have to turn your stuff in 3 days in advance.
Yeah.
Then the
Who's got time
person's
for that?
absent for 3 days. In the meantime, all your lesson plans are in some place and you can't use them because only 2 people could use the copiers. It wasn't a good system. So I'm glad we're doing, I think that's why my question's like, do we have copiers? Because that was crazy.
You remember when?
In talking, the volume is fine. We have enough copiers. They do break down fairly frequently. So thankfully, we do have enough to go to a different one if need be. So,
So Matt's answer about that was actually a good segue to the next questions that Lori had around computer ed, different areas, whether it's repairs, supplies, replacement, additional equipment, and why are they different than the numbers in the tech budget in general, and what's the accounting reason behind that? And only Matt can really answer that. I would like to say, though, that the ones that fall in our budget, our line items, are dedicated to the equipment that we have. So even though it's part of the larger tech budget, these are specifically targeted for things that we're using and doing. And certainly, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong with that.
Yeah, no, that is correct, Rich. Even the elementary school says, I think they have like a line for like $3,500 for computer ed supplies. Same thing with the high school, but they're very specific. But even though Jason Pelletier and the technology department gets involved in every single purchase of technology, we have to apportion all those costs out to the school from an accounting standpoint. Because in the end of the year, when I do my reports to the state that have grown from 10 pages to 20 pages to 36 pages to like 45 pages over the years, I have to kind of cost out what each school costs. That's an important thing for Frank to know. So I would have to ratio it out if we didn't have these little line items in here. So that's what kind of helps out from an accounting standpoint to get a more accurate representation.
just a few more questions. Let's see. Is there enough money to give every freshman a printed program of studies and a student handbook? Yes, there is enough funds. We do provide freshmen with a copy, a hard copy of the program of studies, so they all get that. Student handbooks are not printed. We just find out they're not printed. We just find out it's not be fiscally responsible. In my many years as assistant principal, when we handed them out, they were either thrown at the bottom of the bag or they're just simply not used. With that said, we do print some. And if students would like a hard copy, they have access to that.
Just want to say too, kids, high school students are looking for it online anyways.
Yeah.
They really don't want their print. Every time I try to print something out, my kids say to me, "Why did you print that out? I could just find that online." I'm like, "Okay, sorry. It's because I'm 85 and I want it printed, right?" Yeah.
There is a question about our graduation pathways. More detail and transparency regarding how this is broken out, especially because it's the new line item. Another handout for you all. This is, I talked to Harley today, and he's like, "Can I put this in writing for you?" And I said, "Please." So, and as you know, Harley is really thorough, and this summarizes all his funding where things go. I don't know if you want to take the time to do it tonight. You could be here till 11 o'clock.
No, we can take a look at this on our own. Thank you, though.
Thank you, Ken. All right, let's see. I did have some stuff to share with all of you regarding our theater program, but I believe there's one more question, two more questions. Rich, you have a computer ed question?
It falls under the previous one regarding.
Perfect. And then you had a question about Challenge Day, which Jill will address.
So I'm going to do the best I can because last year was my first year and we did schedule it last year. And unfortunately, before the providers got COVID and had to cancel, there was very minimal interest from not just the students, but staff as well. And I don't know if it's because we didn't have it for so long because of COVID. But those costs really did increase from previous to now. Last year, I think the cost was $13,000.
Yeah, we originally had budgeted $8,500 back before COVID. That was around the cost, and then when we tried to reinstate it after I think it was my last year, it jumped up significantly. and it's all volunteer. It's teacher volunteer, it's freshman volunteer. If you don't want to go, you don't have to go. For the costs that they were charging us and the amount of interest, I don't want to say this, but thankfully it was canceled. We got our money back because they got COVID. And but in looking at it, we found other programs that we feel are beneficial that we're using that fund for. Like we brought in recycled percussion this year.
No Hate Tour.
The No Hate Tour. So we're looking at other things that we do as all school assemblies rather than volunteers, student volunteers. So.
But to answer your question specifically, I know you asked if the freshmen and the seniors were able to do it, and my understanding is that depending on the number of days that they secured with Challenge Day, they were both able to do it at different times. Correct me if I'm wrong. You guys been no longer than me.
That is correct.
And I did miss one question. It was line item 873031. Will this line item be amended with the approval of the recent grant that Matt helped secure? No, this is a separate from Matt's grant. Matt's grant is for cameras and locks, correct, Matt?
Correct.
This is for replacement of our monitors in the main office that we view our video surveillance on. I came from Milford as an assistant principal in my office. I had a huge screen where all cameras were running at the same time, and I could see everything that was going on in the school. So I'm hoping to get that in the main office. And the two small screens that we currently have are old and faded, so we need to replace those. And that was all for questions. I read your email, Mrs. Hardy, and I reached out to Mandy. Oh my God, Mandy Tolman, and I asked her for a theater update, so I was hoping I could share that with you. So right now we're averaging around 30 kids. That was an increase from last year. Last semester we had 18 participating in acting, 2 student directors, 8 or so on the crew, plus 1 club officer. This semester she's seeing an increase. Exact numbers we'll know either, but she's thinking there's probably going to be close to 5 new actors and crew, but hopefully more. Right now, students are spreading the word as much as possible. She's posted flyers around the school that advertise both an interest meeting and the audition days. What's that?
They've been on the monitor too.
Yep, they've been on the monitor in the front office, in the front lobby. She spoke with Bill, I don't know what Bill she's referring to, Maniotis, just recently about involving Mr. Carl and his students to help build with set building. And Bill said we may be able to work with the adult study program with that too. So she's feel like she's going in the right direction. Also, Mamma Mia is a really well-known show, so I'm hoping that draws some people. Mr. Beck is promoting the spring musical to his chorus kids as well. And they're thinking that maybe even an orchestra pit with some band members.
Need a bass player? I'll play.
So that was an update on our improving theater program.
Awesome. That is a great segue to my one question, because looking at the line item for co-curriculars, that looks like where there was a little bit of a bump for theater. It looked like about $4,000. Does that sound about right?
It was more up 7.
Okay.
Because before, I think previously, before I got here, it was 3,000, and now it's at 10.
Okay. So the line that I'm looking at in here, it just says co-curricular supplies, Merrimack High School. It went up from $16,000 that was budgeted before, and it's going up to 20 now. So that's where I came up with the 4,000. That line, because everything for co-curriculars is in that one line, like it looks like, at least from what I'm looking at. And so what I'd love to see is, you know how like with athletics, you break it down like this in the budget? Could we get one of those for co-curriculars in the future so that I can know, like, so we can see like theater gets this much and, robotics gets this much. And I'm assuming it's broken down somewhere like that.
Yeah,
but
we
I
do
don't
have it broken down.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Like it would be awesome to be able to see it like this, the way that you do for athletics, so that we can see where it all goes, because that's really helpful. But I really appreciate that investment. I'm gonna do my little plug again, because when you look at the budget, Merrimack School athletics, again, this is not an anything about like, we need to take money from athletics. Absolutely not. I don't agree with that in any way. I am all for athletics and a robust athletics program. It's important to the community and it's important to every high school. However, just as a point of awareness for people, Merrimack High School athletics, their total athletics budget, unless I'm missing lines here, $331,000 and change, right? That includes officials, equipment repairs, transportation, practice transportation, supplies, strength and conditioning equipment, football helmets, shoulder pads, that sort of thing.
Police detail as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I probably was in there. I might not have even counted that. I don't know. The arts budget, I'm just looking at music right now. Music, choral, and instrumental music supplies, sight reading software, new keyboards for all piano classes, music repair, etc. $14,000, and then other co-curriculars, which is $126,900, which is every other co-curricular that we provide any funding for. So the total athletic budget is $331,000, and the total arts and co-curricular is $141,000. Again, that is not to say we shouldn't be spending that money on athletics. That is to say, I want to see us continue to move towards providing kids who may not be athletic with opportunities that are well funded. And as a community, I think we need to make sure that we're being equitable in the dispersion of funds that taxpayers are providing, because it's important, and the investment being increased with theater as a good example, but certainly not the only example. You know, when we have kids, you know, flying on a robotics team to wherever, and, you know, the parents are feeling the weight of that. The community, we should be, if our team rises to that level, we should be bearing some of that burden. So I see that that you added that in there this year, and I appreciate that, because that is the direction. Again, I'm not saying those things have to equal athletics. I'm not even saying that. I'm saying we have to make sure we're funding these things for the kids. I mean, music isn't even an extracurricular. It's an actual class that factors into these kids' GPAs, right? So it's not extracurricular. So I just want to make sure that we're continually holding that tension between making sure we absolutely fully fund athletics, make sure we have an awesome scoreboard, but make sure we have an awesome theater and a theater program and a music program. Again, one of the best in the state. We want to make sure we are investing. That is not a criticism. That is a continued point of awareness that every time I look at the budget, it is so glaring to me that I want to make sure people in our community understand.
Thank you. We appreciate your passion around that.
Thanks.
That was all the questions that were submitted.
Any follow-ups for MHS admin? All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you all. Have a great evening.
All right. Moving on to additional sessions with department if needed. Is as in, like, if we want to call more sessions with specific departments, this would be the time to have that discussion? Okay. Well, so then I'll turn it over to my fellow board members. Is this something we want to look into, having additional sessions with specific departments? No? All right.
I was just going to say, I would find it personally, I would like it next year when we do the budget. I would really like to have the athletic director here for the high school portion. I appreciate all the detail they put in this budget. I really think it was so helpful for all of us. But I really enjoyed, you know, for example, all the administration coming and presenting to us. We get to see them so little, and we like them so much that, you know, I enjoyed seeing them and having them answer our questions, and I'm sure they love being with us too. But I think that would be very helpful.
May I just say, we will give you, we'll have the athletic director, Adam French, come in at some point, probably around late February, March, give you an update on the athletic program this year, but we will note that. We'll have a person in next year at the budget to present.
And I just want, my feedback that I've heard about Mr. French, obviously Mr. Bergeron, is they're really doing a great job, and people are really, really feeling very confident in their abilities. So I just want to see them again.
Could I add something non-budgetary on what you said? On to what you said. I love it when we have kind of the year in review with each school principal. But one of the, and I love that. We should celebrate. And I love how we're doing the recognitions and all that. But I'd really like to hear from them almost like a SWOT analysis. Yes, show us what went right. Let's celebrate. But where do you think there's weaknesses? Where can we as a board support each school and each principal in what they feel like needs to improve in their schools? What is it that we can communicate to the public and be more supportive of? So along with that same idea, I just think it would be awesome when we have that end of the year review, we also get some honest feedback of where they think their school could improve.
Almost like a goal setting meeting.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it can also give us an idea of where the budget's going to head for the next time. Like these are some of the things we think might need to be prioritized.
Yep.
Yeah, it's interesting you mention that, because I think that would be a good preliminary step prior to the goal setting meeting. Yeah.
Certainly help with that conversation for sure. Okay, moving on to budget work session and warrant article discussion. Well, I'll open up to my fellow board members here. On the warrant article discussion, we have our
let's do the
packets.
warrant article
You want to start
discussion.
with warrant articles?
Okay.
Cool.
Do you want me to go through all of these stem to stern? There's only there's
I
a
would
few of
focus
them.
on the main page, the first page.
Focus on the first page. Okay. Actually we already arrived at a date for the deliberative session of March 4th, 2024. The first article, which has to be an article in the first part of the warrant, is a bond. All bond issues over $100,000 have to be going number one. So the first special article is, shall the district raise and appropriate the sum of $6,900,000 for the construction and original equipping of a new central office to include but not limited to, and you can play with these functions and everything like that. I just wanted to kind of delineate for the public what was going to be in that building. Superintendent services, student wellness, technology, business operation, and human resources. $6,900,000 of such sum to be raised through the issuance of bonds and notes under compliance with the Municipal Finance Act, RSA 33:1, as amended, and further to raise and appropriate by general taxation $174,000 for the purpose of interest payments on said bonds or notes during the fiscal year 24-25, and to authorize the school board to issue, negotiate, sell, and deliver said bonds and notes, and determine the rate of interest thereon and the maturity and other terms thereof. Then to authorize the school board to apply for any grants, either state or federal, which may be available for said projects. Because we're SB2 and not a traditional, the old-fashioned kind of school district meeting or town meeting, the project needs to pass by 3/5 majority. I gave you the breakdown on the, let's see, fourth page in, from Paul Marinese Architects. It breaks down the $6.9 million price tag. And then there's some information as far as, this is one of the quotes. We have 2 to 3 others, but they're all coming in around the same amount. There was one that was really kind of low that we kind of tossed out as, here's a quote, but we don't really mean it kind of thing. So this is from Ekman Construction. Ekman's a very quality company. We have one from another couple of other companies that are really quality, but they're all in this general ballpark. So for a budgetary number, just the construction costs alone are like $6 million. Then you add in the administrative costs, the civil engineering, everything like that. It brings it up to 6.9. And then we have a copy of the site plan on there and the schematic, the office schematic. This has been on our webpage for a month or so now to give everybody an indication of what the building is going to look like. There may be some changes, modifications in this schematic floor plan right now, but this is what we're going off. This is the bid document. The bid standard, because we don't have a full bid package, which takes a year to do and costs maybe a couple $100,000 to do. We're using a particular facility that was built recently as a central office, maybe like 5-6 years ago. It's kind of the standard. It's kind of like when we did the middle school. We based it off of West Runningbrook School in Derry as far as fit and finished and hardware that goes. And then you have, which I have to get redone, a bond schedule for the from the New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank, saying the first payment's going to be $174, and then you go from a high of $600,000 down to a low of $474,000. It's on a 15-year bond, but even with the highest payment, which being in year 2 basically, of $600,000, that's still $200,000 below what the middle school bonded debt is. So from that standpoint, it's going to be a net reduction of around $200,000 in our bonded debt if we go forward with this at this price with this term. So that is what we have as the big warrant article. And then the others, obviously, in the CIP, we were talking about a roof warrant article. I'm not going to go through that because this is really kind of the conversational piece. And then we have the operating budget, which we haven't closed the books on yet. So that's essentially it. Thank you.
Questions for Matt?
Just for the record, we paid off the middle school.
Paid off middle school, $200,000 less than the last payment for the middle school is around $800,000 in the highest year.
So I don't know if this is appropriate time, but we were talking about having a work session with the ad hoc committee. I didn't know if we wanted to invite the planning and building committee to come and do a work session, set a date and time that we could get together and start letting the community know about that this central office is a need. It's not a want, it's a need. We have safety concerns. We really need to get the information out to people. So I didn't know how the board wanted to move forward with that.
We definitely should set a date.
Yeah, I think I think we're probably, yeah. And I think sooner is better than later.
Me too. So
Yeah, our next meeting's on the 16th.
So what about the 22nd?
22nd.
That's fine with me.
Oh, January.
January.
Probably.
Yeah.
Well, hold on, just let everyone check their calendars first.
Yeah,
Good.
looks good.
So I'll make a motion that we put together a work session with our ad hoc committee along with the planning and building committee for January 22nd, 2024, 6 p.m. Same bat time,
Yeah.
same bat channel. All right, cool.
I'll second that.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0-0.
And who's going to send out the invitations to the ad hoc committee? And who's going to let the planning and building committee know?
Sandy, you do that, Matt?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll have Sandy do that.
She has all the information of the members of the ad hoc committee and, Pat Heinrich, Planning and Building Committee, and Rich Hendricks. You just send the clarion call out to them and they will get the group together.
Do we need to have that at the high school in the cafeteria for that many people? So I don't think we'll all fit in the
You
memorial.
could use high school, you could use middle school if you wanted to. The band room? That's a nice location too. It all depends.
I'm just thinking when you take the members of the planning committee plus us plus the ad hoc.
Yeah, it's about
But you
20
want, you
people.
want,
Could we
you-
do it right here, right? I mean, like, we could sit over there. No?
If,
Oh, you
if
want-
it's available, I think everyone could fit in here.
you definitely want this televised, and the only
Yeah.
negative portion, the negative part of the middle school is the Merrimack TV has to move all their gear from the high school. They're all set up in the cafeteria. They tape it. It wouldn't live stream. The quality isn't going to be good as being here. This is a nice venue. So if we could possibly, I know it's going to be tight quarters and we'll be sitting in the pews and whatnot, but maybe it'll be a good place to have the meeting is right here.
We'll check tomorrow morning to see if the room is available.
If it is available,
Yep.
yeah.
Will that be a single item, a single agenda item, meeting?
Yeah.
Okay,
It'll be a work session, so there'll be
Mhm.
no votes taken that night.
right.
Matt, can you just? I know that you've said this a million times before, and I know that you probably can't say it enough. Can we just go back through the history just real quick, brief? This was a need. This was determined to be a need ages ago, and put before the voters. Can you just once again quickly summarize the history for
absolutely.
people?
Before you do, can I piggyback on Jenna's
Sure.
question?
You can do whatever.
Because one of the things that I've heard from people is, wait, they feel like it kind of came out of the blue, like that we didn't necessarily investigate, like, well, could we have done this other thing? Could we have done this other thing? And I think some of that history is it's included in some of this history that you are about to relate. So, I would love for you to emphasize all of the different ideas that have been explored and what we felt that they would cost and what that impact would be. And
Yeah, when I first got here 23 years ago, this was being talked about before I got here. The initial price was a little less than $500,000, and then Ken Coleman, school board chairman, one of the years, maybe my year, second or third year, made around 500,000. Then it creeped up to $1 million. Then in 2013, we had a prefabricated building that was put on the ballot for 1.5. But even back then, in 2013, the price of a stick-built central office was $3.1 million. So you think about your house. In 2013, what was your house worth? Look at your tax bill. See what your assessed valuation was on your house in 2013. Now take a look at it. So the same thing applies here. So in 2013, the real price was $3.1 million. And we've done study after study, a space needs study, a feasibility study. Me and Rich Hendricks, the chairman of the Planning and Building Committee, banged all over this town going into offices to look to rent space because that was a big thing. There's so much vacant office space, you could lease space. We were all over the place going into these strange buildings in the middle of the night, looking at lease space. There really isn't a whole heck of a lot available. We also looked at utilizing space in our facilities. And the big thing was, and it's published online. This big thing is a report about utilizing the middle school, but that was only to move special ed over there. And that was an absolute abject failure because there's no real good entrance into the middle school aside from the entrance where staff and students come in the morning. And if you have people of a confidential nature, if you have HR in there and you have an employee that's disgruntled, they've got to walk through where the kids are. So it's not a good location. You can look at the report. It's online. It was been online for a long time, and it just kind of states that. We looked at the idea of adding on to the high school, where the greenhouse is now. Lynn Christensen came up with that idea that we look at that. That was actually more expensive than building a standalone building. So we went through that routine. Then we looked at it, putting it down over the end of O'Gara where the skate park is. That didn't make it any less expensive. Then we looked at putting it in an acre of land that's wooded right now at the end of the high school parking lot. That was around the same price. The site that we have right now is perfect. with the demolition of Brentwood, the red building, you couldn't ask for a nicer site. So that's the site is there. The bonded debt is gone from the middle school. This can replace it and still save $200,000. This is like the best timing I've seen. It's in timing we had talked about years ago. Boy, it'd be nice to wait until the middle school was finally done with the middle school bond. But people thought back at the time that perhaps this would already be done by then, but it hasn't. So here we are. And so the price has escalated dramatically, but we have the advantage of having the middle school bond expiring. So now it's kind of fiscally a good time.
So go through the history of it being on a warrant article, though, right? So
Only
2013,
once. Only once.
it was only once on an warrant.
2013, it was on there once. It failed by 60 votes. 59 or 60 votes. Laurie, I believe you 59 votes. I remember it was around that. And we never came back a second time.
And you have to have 60%. So
You have to have
We
60%.
actually passed. We
You
just
gotta-
didn't have the 60%. And the Planning and Building Committee at the time begged to go back the next year because a lot of the town things, like the town garage, it took 2 times. So sometimes it takes more than 1 time because, like Naomi was saying, like people think it comes out of nowhere. This has been a discussion for a long time, but the communication is within a committee sometimes.
So it was on the ballot once. For
Yeah.
reference, how many times was the middle school on the ballot before it got built?
3 times. First time it lost by 30 votes. I remember this because it was traumatizing. First time it lost by 30 votes. The second time it lost by 3. We had a recount. The third time was a charm. It was an overwhelming victory because Nick Donahue, the Commissioner of Education, came to a school board meeting and said, look at Merrimack, if you don't do something about your overcrowded middle school, meaning J Muse, which was 33% over capacity, you will have an unapproved school. And therefore, I have the authority to hold back $10 million in state aid, adequate education grant money, if I choose to. So you need to have a plan. So that kind of gave it the push that it needed to finally, pass. And plus, we did a whole grade realignment. We moved up we sucked the 5th graders out of the elementary schools. We created the upper elementary school. So it created space in the elementary schools so we could then put in full day kindergarten. Because the middle school was built in 2003, 2004, and 2004, 2005, and then full day kindergarten came in 2005, 2006. So it accomplished just more than building a building. It also brought in full day kindergarten.
I really appreciate that. I know that it's been said before. I just don't think it can be said enough. You know, if somebody's
It
watching,
can't.
if somebody's watching this school board meeting and they've missed the other ones, it doesn't hurt for it to be said, this was brought up 10 years ago as a need. And here we are 10 years later. It
Yeah.
still has not been addressed.
Correct.
And if anybody has not seen the inside of our special services or school administration building, pop on by because it's a real sight to see.
Well, and I think that could be a real game changer for a lot of folks. Like, go see the building. Go look, and I know that's part of the ad hoc committee.
Not more than like 4 at a time though.
Yeah,
'cause
right.
Super
Yeah.
small and you won't
Right,
fit.
Yeah, make an appointment. But that's part of the ad hoc committee's charge. And one of the reasons that we're looking to put one together is that this, another voice in the community to get the word out there about how this isn't. And I've seen comments and heard comments. This isn't like, oh, we just want a nicer space. It's like, no, we need a space because right now we have no space. And the space that we have has been duct taped together and we've made it work. And I think that's a testament to, hey, we've made this work because this is what the town has said. That's the way that they're going. But now, looking at, we're growing, we're getting bigger, and the building is just completely impractical for any kind of administrative use. Both buildings.
Yeah, and plus from a workspace environment, the architecture and the proximity to people who you work with every single day, that matters. You know, I mean, Jason Pelletier's up in the library somewhere. I'd like to have Jason Pelletier across the hall from me. You know, I'd like to have HR on the same floor as me. I'd like to have special ed right there. We need to be together in order to work our most effective way together. And this building does that. It takes all these functions that are scattered throughout and puts them together under one roof. And there's a lot that can happen when you're under one roof and you're seeing one another every single day and you have those impromptu conversations, which really can lead to something really special when you're in front of one another and you see one another day to day.
But at a very basic level, as a board and as a town, we have a responsibility to provide safe workplaces. And it's not a safe workplace.
Or compliant.
Yeah, right. Compliant. There are people in the basement that, God forbid, there should be a fire. They don't have safe egress. And it's very, very concerning that we're not being compliant in that way. I'm also haunted by the fact that there was a person who has a disability who came for an interview and could not get into the superintendent's office in order to have that interview because their wheelchair would not fit. These are things that really are unacceptable to me and should be unacceptable to us as a community to ask people to work in those conditions or to try to attract talent to come and not be able to come in and have an interview. Those are things that we aren't trying to have the Taj Mahal. I want the people who come to work in our district, the people we value the most, that do important work for our district, to be safe when they come to work. And it is not okay that they're not, and we need to fix it.
Let me take a moment and put my economics hat on. We all know that last year, inflation in July of 2022 was 9%. It's down to 3.5%. The target rate for the Fed is 2.2%. We're not going to get there. And because of the expense of COVID, the Fed can no longer keep raising interest rates to slow down inflation. So inflation's here for a while. And the problem we have is we keep delaying this. Inflation is going to keep driving up these costs over and over and over. It's not going to get cheaper. The need is not going to get less. The need for a safe and compliant workplace is not going to go away. And we're going to wind up in the same situation that we were before the middle school got approved, where the state's now coming in or the town's now coming in and going, you cannot use this building anymore. We cannot get in that situation. So for all of these reasons, putting it off, kicking the can down the road is not going to make it any cheaper. It's going to make it more expensive.
May I just add on to that also that at some point in time, there will be an inspectional services department or the fire department that will kind of force our hand in terms of having to make a decision to maybe get out of that facility. And I've seen this type of thing happen in the past where when that happens, you have to make a fast decision. You have to make a very expensive decision. You don't have the adequate time like Matt has spent for years planning this facility, looking at it carefully, making it basically a functional space with no expensive features to the building. It's a basic building, but I have seen situations in the past. I've experienced them in my position in a former district where something happened. The entire town hall in Westford had to evacuate the building for safety reasons, and that became a very expensive decision. And we want to avoid that. Things have been planned out very carefully, very methodically, both physically from the physical facility perspective, but also from the financial perspective. And so, I hope the voters will understand that we're not looking for a palace here. We just want a space that, Matt, as you said, we don't want to have to waste time having people move all around the district to try and find adequate meeting space. And we are wasting time doing that. We talk about efficiency and return on investment. that's a very poor return on investment in terms of the amount of money that's being spent on a per minute or per hour basis of people having to move to other facilities. And I'm talking lots of people move to our facilities in an adequate meeting space because it's not happening in our building at all. So we'll always, if people would like to come in, we'll always be willing to provide them with factual information, let them see it themselves to make a decision. So, we'll invite the public to come in anytime they'd like, and we'll be glad to show them the deficiencies of the building.
All right. Do we want to continue our warrant article discussion or move on? Went through them all?
Yeah, we're done.
Cool. Moving on to budget work session.
I think we've heard from everyone. I think next week's meeting will be the crucial
Chat.
Yeah.
All right. So this is the week we do our homework and, extra homework, and come back to the next meeting ready to have some discussions on how we see the budget for next year. Sure. Okay. Any other new business or no, we're still under new business. Part 2, new business.
Before you move on to part 2,
I have a continuation of the other
part 1.
Yes.
part 1. Because it came up at the budget committee last week, I would like to be able to give them a definitive statement on what the board thinks of the scoreboard situation. So I was hoping we could have a vote, or at least a very definitive discussion.
I'd be willing to make a motion that we support the fundraising and movement towards a school scoreboard and the support of the school board to consider future gap funding.
I'd be happy to second that.
Yeah. All those in favor? 500. You can tell them we're all for it. All right. Before I move on, any other new business part 1?
Can I ask, because at our last meeting, we talked about the desire to probably have us bring in a somewhat reduced budget than what this document provides. Would you like to have that discussion at our next meeting, which is on, I believe, the 16th? And then I'm talking from a procedural perspective. Have you provide us with a little bit of direction, certainly, and then at a following meeting, come in with a revised budget based on your needs?
I think that makes sense.
Okay.
Yes. Let us have that chat and then take that information back.
Okay.
And I would say last year we kind of did that. We were in the memorial room, and so I think doing it that way is going to work very well.
Yeah. Great. All right. I'm going to say it again. Any other new business under part 1? We're moving on to new business part 2.
Okay. As we discussed, the warrant article for the new central office, because it is a bond, you have to have by law a bond hearing. And the last day for a bond hearing is February 20th. However, that is not optimal because the budget committee would also have to have a meeting that date. So that's way too late. So because we have a regular board meeting on February 5th, and then the budget committee has warrant article reviews on February 6th, it would be nice to have a bond hearing, which is nothing more than we have a regular board meeting, but at the beginning of the board meeting, we post it as a hearing, and it's to get input from the public. And then at the end, you would vote on how you would support the central office warrant article. And so that would be nice from my standpoint to be able to go into that February 6th budget committee meeting with a vote from the board supporting the article or not supporting the article, whatever you choose to do.
So we would do the hearing first, correct?
Do the
And
hearing
then we go into our
first,
regular school
then,
board meeting.
Then after the hearing, Once you've heard the public.
Yep.
Then you've gotten public input. It has to be advertised in the paper, and then you would do a vote.
Yep.
And that vote would be then carried on to the budget committee when they're
Right.
doing their warrant articles.
And that's
So-
prior to February 6th.
Yeah.
Is that what you're
Yes.
saying?
Be at our
Yeah,
February 5th meeting.
February-
So
February-
if you
so
do it the
February
5th, we give it to them on the 6th with a vote of the board.
So I would, assuming we need a motion for that, I would make a motion to hold that bond hearing date and warrant, the bond hearing date for February 5th, 2024, prior to the school board meeting that evening. Second from Lori. All those in favor?
Aye.
500. Bond hearing date is set for February 5th, 2024, 6 p.m. Or, yeah, okay, 6 p.m. 6 p.m. Great. All right. Moving on to approval of minutes for the December 18th, 2023 public meeting and non-public meeting. We have a motion to accept the minutes for the public minutes.
I have an edit. Where was it? On page 7. Right near the bottom, line 353, it says board member Halter. That comment was actually Jenna, so it should say board member Hardy.
It's very similar.
I'm assuming someone's autocorrect like started a name that starts with HA.
All right. Any other edits? Good. Do we have a second? I'll rescind my motion. And
So
then-
yeah, I'll move to accept the minutes with that that change on line 353 where it says Halter. It should say Hardy.
Great. And I will second. All those in favor? Passes 500. And then approval of non-public minutes for December 18th, 2023. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the non-public minutes.
Yep. I will second. All those in favor?
I don't have those.
Oh. Why did I think I did have them?
Maybe I do somewhere, but I don't have them in front of me.
Oh, we might have to table that one. Oh, I have the non-publics from the last meeting. Okay. Maybe we'll table that till next time then. All right. All right, moving on. Public comments on agenda items. If you'd go ahead. Consent. Oh, that's right. Sorry, that wasn't on my original thing. Consent agenda. We do have one educator nomination this evening.
We sure do. Chad Seaver will become a science teacher at Merrimack Middle School.
Do we have a motion to accept?
I'll make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor? 500. Welcome to the team. All right. Now moving on to public comments on agenda items. If you wish to comment on any of the agenda items tonight, please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. And if you're a student, please state your name only, no address. Seeing none, we will move on to adjourn. Do we have a motion to adjourn? So moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? 500. Thanks, everybody. We will be back on the 16th.